CF music. EQ, and why sayings like, why don't you just not have a bass player if you're going to tune the guitar so low, are a logical fallacy. And the same applies for thinking that lower is in fact heavier. The science of audio overrules all. It's not about notes, it's about frequencies. It's not about tunings, it's about frequencies. It's not about genres, it's about frequencies. It's not about anything but the mix. Humans hear on a frequency spectrum from roughly 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. You can make a song that's in standard or drop D sound as heavy as songs in the lowest tunings, because as long as the microphone is picking up a decent amount of the frequency spectrum at the source, you can increase those frequencies and turn them up later in the EQ. They're just super low. So if you can turn those frequencies up later in the EQ, then the same frequencies are bound to be in almost anything else, also just super low. Equalization is just level for specific areas of the frequency spectrum of human hearing. So think of EQ as selective level. The best application I've found is subtractive EQ rather than additive, where instead of increasing the ones that sound good and always having to counter a side effect with something else and endlessly balancing it and waste time, you just instead subtract the bad ones, take the muddiness and crap out, and you leave the rest alone at zero. The least amount required to achieve the desired effect. The common urban state is to overdo everything until it becomes an eldritch abomination. Less is more with audio, I promise you. This is true in theory, yes, but in practice, if you do this method instead of the risk of overdoing it, you won't even have to add more low end in the first place simply because you didn't overdo it. So it will just automatically sound crushing despite being in higher tuning because it wasn't overdone. So the dynamics are all still there. Dynamics and compression is another story, but the same overkill theory applies. If you want to make living art, it has to be able to breathe. So it doesn't matter that it's in higher tuning, because you can just turn 100 hertz up. Like, it's not the note, it's the frequencies. You could increase the low end of a note. So what does it matter that it's a tuning? What does it matter if it's the note? Obviously within, like, reason, right? But you get what I'm saying. Like, you can increase 100 hertz if it's a drop D note or a freaking drop A note. You can increase the same 100 hertz frequency, you just turn it up. So what does it matter what note it is? You see what I mean? So you, in theory, you can make a drop D song as crushing and heavy as like the lowest tuning, because it's just the frequency in that spot. You know what I mean? And people just overdo everything because they're attached to the bullshit industry and the genres and the gimmicks and the like subgenres within subgenres, and they really think they're finding something that's hidden, but they're really just totally absorbed in it. But the point is, that's what blurs the line of the actual science. So like, if you to say like, why don't you just not have a bass player then if you're just gonna tune the guitar solo? Because that's why you still need the bass too, because the bass is a whole octave lower. Even if the bass is in drop D and the guitar is in drop D, the whole instrument of a bass is still an octave lower, and you still need those frequencies in it. So you're not going to get rid of the bass because like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why a lot of these modern gent bands, the sound and the guitar tone is like annoyingly paper thin, because it's almost like they know people say that stuff, and they're like purposely trying to show that it doesn't matter. Because now I can just turn the bass down on it, a super low drop G sharp. Hey, what if I turn the bass down on a low note? Then you can make it sound thin. So no matter how low it is, you can make it sound thin. And no matter how high it is, you can bring up the low end. So it's a fucking myth. It's a logical fallacy. It doesn't matter what tuning or what note, within reason. Like, I'm not saying the 24th fret at the highest string. Yeah, you're going to have a hard time getting the low. No, I'm saying within reason. Like, come on, you're not that stupid. And you know I'm not that stupid, and I'm not saying that. So don't try to grasp at straws and do so much effort to hold on to, like, such a small point. Like, it's not even worth holding on to because it's, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, EQ is like the whole thing. And one interesting fact is, most of what we hear is like dead center in the middle of like 1,000, 1K. So that's why, that's where babies cry falls at all the time, because it's the human hearing. Cats have a different spectrum and dogs have a different spectrum. The whole thing is different. But ours is 20 to 20K. So everything dead center 1K is a baby crying, is a helpless animal, is like, and it's always in that shrill 1K area because it's the most prominent part of where we hear that. So that's just what it evolved to. So that, okay, we have a nice wide range, but the dead center is right there where it needs to be. So that's really the important part, and then the rest of the spectrum is based on that. But we need to be able to hear a helpless offspring, you know what I mean? And be able to help whatever little helpless thing. So that's the reason for that. It's always 1K. The best guitar frequencies is like 1 to 2K. You just go right there and do it a little tiny bit, and it'll be enough. And that's what I'm saying. The big innovators like Chris Lord, Algie, and shit, and Ross Robinson, Rick Rubin, all those guys know about subtractive EQ. You know what I mean? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to turn up individual little knobs on it, because think about what you're asking the machine to really do. You're asking it to do some ridiculous non-smooth shape, like with all the little individual knobs on it that go up and down, the sliders. If you're making this one, that one, all over the place, think about what you're asking it to do. And then they complain it doesn't sound good. Make it smooth. Make it like as little as possible. Make it easy for it. And your songs will just be crushing.